My daughter has schizophrenia, AMA. My daughter is 19 years old and does not have a Reddit account. She gave her permission for me to post about her. There are a lot of misconceptions about what schizophrenia is. AMA. What is the most difficult thing for her in day-to-day life? And for you? For her, it's ignoring the hallucinations. Hallucinations can be voices, things she sees that aren't there, or sometimes feeling sensations that aren't real. An example would be seeing bugs crawling all over her that aren't there, but also being able to feel them crawling on her or biting her. For me, it's trying to be empathetic and understand her needs. My husband and I are healthy. I've never hallucinated. Therefore, it's hard for me to understand what life is like for her. And sounds so hard. Does she definitively know when it's a hallucination or not? Sometimes she can't tell. With visual hallucinations, she opens the camera app on her phone to see if what she's seeing shows up on the phone screen. Her hallucinations don't appear on the phone screen. This is really interesting. I mean, the brain is obviously creating a false image, but why wouldn't it put it on the phone as well? I don't know. Maybe sometimes people with schizophrenia see hallucinations on their phone screens. I wondered the same thing myself. What are her symptoms? What kind of treatment does she receive? And is there a history of schizophrenia in her family? Her symptoms are paranoia, delusions, and hallucinations, auditory, visual, and tactile. She's been tested by psychologists, received medication from psychiatrists, and gets therapy every 2 weeks. My husband and I are both healthy with no mental illness. My father had suspected bipolar, but was never treated. My older brother has bipolar, and just within the past few years, he admitted that he has always heard voices. What medications does she take? And has she had any adverse reactions? Really glad to read she's getting therapy in addition to psychiatric care. I hear outcomes are better when combined. Abilify works the best. Caplyta sent her into psychosis. Olanzapine messed with her hormones and made her gain a ton of weight. She has switched medication and immediately shed the excess weight. What does she say things are like after the medicine? Like things are quiet? After taking her medication, she feels calmer and doesn't notice them as much. They don't go away completely, but they fade enough so she can ignore them and hold a regular conversation. When did the symptoms begin? And what was your initial reaction to those symptoms? Her very first symptom happened at the age of 2. I put her to bed in her crib, and she begged me to make the carousel music stop. There was no music. I told her there was no music. I was very scared that something was wrong with her. The next day, she seemed happy and doing well. The symptoms came on little by little but were noticeable by puberty. She tried to hide them, but grew suicidal. She stayed in a mental hospital for a week. A panel of psychologists discovered what the issue was and prescribed medication and therapy. What was your reaction when she told you about her symptoms? Did you think she was crazy? Or did you understand and immediately try to help her? I wish you and her well. I myself have schizophrenia as well. She didn't tell me. She tried to hide every symptom. Her grades dropped to failing, and she grew suicidal. I already had her in therapy for suspected bipolar. The panel of psychiatrists and psychologists quickly discovered that she was hallucinating. It was them who told me. I was sad and shocked, but I believed them. Since then, I have joined in with her treatment, seeing she had the support she needed, and doing my best to understand her and help her. Why did she try to hide her symptoms from you? She was afraid of being called crazy and not understood. Even now, I tell her she's not crazy, but has a mental illness. Every time I've heard people use the term crazy, it was an excuse to dismiss someone as irrelevant and discredit their beliefs. I caught myself casually using it on fans of an opposing sports team. I stopped using the term. How and when did you realize something may be different about her? It happened little by little. The first ever time was when I put her to bed in her crib at the age of 2. She was crying and begging me to make the carousel music stop. The next morning she seemed fine. There were little things here and there. When she hit puberty, things escalated. How do you support her? I pay for medication and therapy. Now I'm working with an attorney to get her benefits because she's not able to work to earn money or go to college. She occasionally volunteers, helps her 92-year-old grandmother, and facilitates her mental health group once a month. The biggest thing I do to support her is believe her, let her rest when she needs it, and take her seriously. What kind of support are you getting? Hoping to have as a parent of someone with schizophrenia. I have an encouraging circle of friends. We meet once a week and take turns sharing updates on our children. It helped to have support from her school, a wonderful program to teach young people how to transition into adulthood, and a medical insurance, we live in the US, that would cover all of her medical expenses. I'm hoping to get her a source of income and the potential to move into an assisted living home after I'm... Why do you feel an assisted living home is best for her? Could she get by with a caregiver coming to check on her in her own home each day? What are the biggest limitations to her living alone? The biggest challenge for her living alone is being alone. Triggers hallucinations. Her hallucinations would have to be under control. Also, her depression would need to be a lot better. If she lived alone, She would have access to her medications. She would need to not be depressed so that she wouldn't intentionally overdose. Also, she would need a high enough income to pay the bills. What's the first thing to know? I'd say to pay attention to unusual symptoms or behaviors in your children. For her, she said to not be ashamed of it. She got her first hallucinations at a very young age, but didn't know what they were or have a name to put to what was happening. What meds are they on, and are they working well so far? Have they had to be hospitalized over it? Or do they require a caregiver? Lastly, do you live in a state that takes mental health seriously and gives the proper aid to help? Reason I ask is, my fiance has this illness too, so I'm comparing notes on the experience. Abilify, aripiprazole, works the best with no side effects. It helps, but does not cancel out the hallucinations. She also takes Buspar for anxiety and Trazodone for insomnia. She had to be hospitalized for a week several years ago due to suicidal ideation. That's when the psychologist discovered that she suffered from hallucinations. I wish you and your fiancé the best. It's different for every person. The sooner it is treated, the more chance someone has of living a normal life. It was difficult to get her situation to be taken seriously by doctors. Mostly I had to figure things out for myself. Psychologists test and diagnose. Psychiatrists prescribe medication. And therapists help them work through issues. Regular doctors were ready to dismiss the problems and assure me nothing was wrong. She can't live alone, so she stays with us, her parents. Other than making dinner and sometimes picking up for her, she tries to be independent and do cleaning in her room and bathroom. Many times she's exhausted, and my husband and I have to do things for her. Not sure if daughter is reading these with parents, so I'll just address her directly. What are your passions? Creative outlets? What makes you feel the most at peace in this life? Her passions are art, charcoal drawings, and acrylic painting. She listens to music all the time with one earbud in, which helps with the auditory hallucination. She feels most at peace when spending time with friends, doing fun things like eating meals, watching movies, and attending community events. What has been your experience so far in helping manage the condition on your own personal level? Does this diagnosis require more time and planning on a day-to-day basis to be more helpful? Or have you had to become more prepared to work on the fly? Obviously, you cannot fully predict episodes, but what sorts of steps do you take to help yourself? Also just felt like asking if you personally are doing okay. It can be a lot to handle sometimes, and I know that most people solely focus on the child, without the emotional, physical cost the parents bear. I've been frustrated that there was no how-to guide. I had to figure things out on my own. My husband, her father, was more in denial. At least he wasn't belligerent. He was just a bit skeptical. I work full-time from home. I only need to take time off work when she's going through psychosis. That happened over a year ago, when the doctor switched her medication because the one she was using before was messing up her metabolism. Another medication was switched, and her condition stabilized. Her episodes are completely random but affected by stress. Mostly I've adjusted so much that I have to think and listen to, put on paper any special things I do for her. I'm doing well for the most part. I have lots of support from friends. If I could ask for something more, it would be for specialists to document her case. I think there are a lot of assumptions about schizophrenia. I want to see treatment improve, and for mental health issues of all kinds to be taken more seriously, and treated even at young ages. I hope this doesn't come across as ignorant or disrespectful. All my sympathy for you and your daughter. I have always been curious what would happen if you interact with your hallucinations. Like if you hallucinate a person in the hallway, what would happen if you ran up and punched them in the face? It would just be like a hologram, her psychologist advised, against interacting with the hallucinations, as there is a risk of losing touch with reality. It helps her to talk about them with others, and to even draw them, so others can see what she sees every day. Love and strength to you and your family. Does your daughter have friends? If so, do they have schizophrenia or anything similar, or are they more neurologically typical? She has many friends from church, her school, she's in a transitional program, and her mental health group. Many of her friends are neurodivergent like her, but some are neurotypical. The neurodivergent friends understand her in a way the others can't. Has diet or specific foods helped or worsened the symptoms in any way? What have you tried, if anything, in that regard to help? She recently went gluten-free for a month after having her stomach scoped and her duodenum biopsied. She was suspected of having celiac disease. The biopsies came back normal. She started eating gluten again with no effects. She takes vitamin supplements and probiotics. So far, she has found no correlation between what she eats and her condition. Even cutting out sugar seemed to have no effect. She does not eat many sweets anyway, as we don't keep them around.